Cowboys go on the road. Backup quarterback, get a win. It is the Blitz here on San Antonio Sports Star, ESPN AM 1250, 94.5 FM. I'm Jason Minix. Glad to have you along here on this Monday afternoon. Time for Mondays with the Moose. Three-time Super Bowl champion, analyst with Fox Sports, Daryl Johnston joins us now. Moose, you talk about going into a big game with a backup quarterback, the confidence level of the teammates. They might say all the right things, but where do you think their confidence really was at the start of that game?
I don't think they would have said anything that they didn't believe. They don't have to create any false hope. They don't have to build anybody up. Again, it's one of the things that I always lose sight of. We're just not there at the facility every day. And as a player, you can see the progress. You know the strengths and weaknesses as a player. You've got a good feel for that matchup. As fans and as a broadcaster, we're separated from that part of it. We get to see the finished product every week, but we don't see the progression from week 1 to week 4, from week 4 to week 8. We don't see the growth of the individuals as a part of that team. So I don't think anybody would have gone into that game with any notion of trying to convince themselves that they could beat the Minnesota Vikings on the road. I love the game plan that Kellen Moore put together. Took some pressure off of Cooper Rush, got the run going, some interesting formations for coordinators to think about moving forward. Got him into a rhythm with some short passes, gave him a few shots down the field. So I just thought it was well done. You look at what they've done this season. I thought the Chargers' victory on the road was big, especially the way that they were playing during that time. I thought the New England victory, on the road, that was a game that they would have lost in years past. And I think potentially this one too. And I think that this one now has to have them just, absolutely brimming with confidence moving forward. So I thought it was a huge win, just an absolutely huge win.
I agree. Do you think the players themselves knew that it was going to be Cooper all week, even though he took all the snaps with the first team? They've talked about that. But, I was in Phoenix over the weekend and, flying back, of course, plane was a little delayed. So I was watching the first part of the game on my iPad, but looking at Twitter, there were media types saying Dak's going through warmups, looks like he's going to be able to play. And then, of course, obviously at the last minute, he was a scratch. Do you think there was the plan all along was to do that? And if he played, it was a bonus, or do you think it really went down to that final minute? And then from a player standpoint, you go, okay, well, maybe Dak's got a chance. That's why I'm trying to figure out the gamesmanship that Mike McCarthy was using last night.
I think it went down to the last minute to see if Dak was going to be able to go. When he's on the field with Britt Brown, who's one of the athletic trainers, who's going to be a key part of that decision, along with Jim Maurer, the head trainer, position coaches. Everybody's going to be watching his movement. How does he look? How does he feel? And they're going to see something where it's not quite him. And sometimes you have to protect a player from himself. And I think that Dak is one of those guys. He just wants to be on the field. And they made the decision not to go. And I think that's because they pressed it as hard as they could. They had the bye week. You're doing everything. You heard you had a PRP treatment, very, very late in the process, trying to, throw everything they possibly could at that injury. And then you get to the game and you go out pregame and you go through the motions and you do the test. And all of a sudden you decide, you know what, it's not worth risking, to put you out there and maybe set you 4 weeks back now. It's something we can't afford. And we had a similar situation in our game with Tyrod Taylor. I think Tyrod really felt he was going to play. And, he's been Friday, they decide that they're going to stay with Davis Mills. And, we really felt like we were trending that way too. And actually talking to Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator of the LA Rams, he felt that they were trending that way. He expected to see Tyrod Taylor. So sometimes, that whether it's something subtle in their performance, it's, for Tyrod, I think they ran an MRI, Thursday after practice, and they didn't like the way it came back. And in kind of a similar situation, let's not force you back here and lose you for another 5 weeks when we can wait one more week and then have you for the rest of the year. So those are just the tough decisions that have to be made. But the biggest thing is how the team responded to that and was able to find a way to win that game.
And I want to ask you about the Rams and Texans game that you had yesterday on Fox in a couple of minutes. But staying with the Cowboys as we visit with Daryl Johnston here on the Blitz. The game plan yesterday, especially late, and I know Amari Cooper made that great bobbling catch and then, of course, had the game-winning touchdown. But that 3rd and 11 play after the 5-yard penalty, Zeke splitting those two defenders, breaking the tackle and picking up the first down, I thought was kind of the play of the game. And what it really signaled was Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy decided they were trying to win that thing in regulation, not kick the field goal and go to overtime. I was impressed that once they got into field goal range, they didn't take the foot off the gas pedal. They kept trying to score that touchdown.
Yeah, and that's another thing, right? The mentality. We've talked about the performance of the guys and how well they play and how they responded to the adversity of not having a starting quarterback. But I agree. The game plan that Kellen Moore called, the overall, management of the game and the decision making by Coach McCarthy. I agree with you on that one. And it was an outstanding play by Ezekiel. And I thought, he had a real nice game last night. Him and Tony Pollard together are just continuing to make strides. And it's so much for a defense to handle. But that was awesome. It was, I agree. They didn't take the foot off the gas once they got, down there and get real conservative and, hey, maybe we'll pop a screen or, hey, maybe we'll pop a run on the inside. They were still pressing the ball down the field.
Were you surprised at the end of the game when you look at the box score and you go, all right, 24 rushes and 40 pass attempts? Is that because Minnesota said, all right, you're not going to be able to run against us? It's Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush is going to have to beat us. We're going to do everything we can to take the run game away?
Absolutely. They're not going to let that Dallas offensive line get rolling and Ezekiel and Tony Pollard, start to feel good. And even with some of the struggles that Minnesota has had on the back end this year, they've had a revolving door at the corner position. That's still in that scenario, make the guy's got he's thrown 3 passes in his NFL career coming into that game. This is the guy that's going to have to beat us. It's not going to be the offensive line in the running game controlling the clock for 60 minutes, keeping our guys off the field and winning this thing in a tight fit. We're going to make Cooper Rush throw the ball down the field.
Daryl, was the Cowboys defense, is it getting to the level where they're that good, or was it just that bad of a day for Minnesota offensively, especially when you look at 1 of 13 on 3rd down?
Yeah, I thought they were very physical in the secondary. It seems to be contagious with the guys. Once one guy is playing really well like that, it seems that it spreads throughout the entire defense. And for me yesterday, it was really the secondary that you really saw that. So, they didn't have the big takeaways. They didn't have, a defensive score. It was just kind of, they were just playing it, play after plays. And that was one of the games that I wanted to see. And that's a good offense. That's Dalvin Cook. That's Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins. Their offensive line is still starting to grow and get a little bit better. But that's a good offense. And I thought that Dallas was very physical. They've always been flying around the football. But I thought that there were several really, really big hits in the secondary yesterday. And that's what's starting to impress me is it all seems to be coming together on the defensive side of the ball. And obviously that's going to take time in year one under Dan Quinn. But you're really starting to see that group believe in what they've been studying and learning all season long.
Well, I look at Minnesota. They get a touchdown on their opening drive. They convert their only 3rd down on the opening drive. No 3rd down conversions the rest of the game. No touchdowns the rest of the game. I like what I'm seeing out of the Dallas defense, but I'm starting to think, man, are they really going to be? Are they that good? I guess is the question.
I don't see why they wouldn't be, and that's why. Against that offense, against Minnesota's offense. Now they've been notorious this year for coming out in the beginning of the game and having a really good opening drive, and then have kind of struggled to adjust. And is that, the struggles of a first-year offensive coordinator adjusting to the flow during the course of the game and reacting and responding. I don't know, but that's a very, very talented offensive group. And now they've got Christian Darrisaw at left tackle, their first-round draft pick. So they've got all the pieces in place. And to hold an offense that has that much talent on it without a conversion on 3rd down after that first drive, I think speaks volumes. And a lot of it has to do with just the speed in the secondary with the guys converging. Antonio Brown had a great game yesterday. Or Anthony Brown had a great game yesterday. I thought he really, really stood out as a guy. But I just think they can roll numbers at you in the secondary. And we still have a couple of guys that are yet to get back on the field. So really, as good as they're playing right now, I mean, there could be another kind of big uptick once you get some of the other guys back in that lineup.
Daryl Johnston, a three-time Super Bowl champion with the Cowboys, now an analyst with Fox Sports, joining us here on the Blitz as he does every Monday for Mondays with the Moose. You had the Texans-Rams game yesterday that I was a little surprised to see that was the game that they were showing on the Fox affiliate in Phoenix yesterday. So I got to watch some of that one, and it was kind of ugly early. The Texans scored 22 points in the fourth quarter, and so the Rams decided they needed some help, went and traded for Von Miller today. Did you get rumblings that they were going to make a move like that while you were getting ready for this game?
No, not at all. You wonder if that was part of the reason for the Kenny Young trade last week, because I think that one caught a lot of people by surprise. Kenny had played really well this season, started every game for him. Was one of their inside linebackers, could play both positions, was the guy who was on there when it was a single linebacker defensive personnel grouping. It led the team in tackles for losses, which is pretty impressive when you've got Leonard Floyd and Aaron Donald there. So I think a lot of people were surprised last week when Kenny got traded, and maybe this is the reason why. Maybe conversations that already started last week. They're missing that component opposite Leonard Floyd right now. But you can tell they are absolutely all in to try and win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years, maybe 3 years. But you've got Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, you add Von Miller, you bring in Matthew Stafford. Your wide receiver group is playing really, really well right now. This is probably the last year for Andrew Whitworth. That offensive line was young 3 years ago. They've grown up together. It's as good a team as Sean McVay has had since going back to 2018 when they were in the Super Bowl against Patriots. I just think they're all in. And you've kind of had that feeling, this whole offseason building up to this year that the Rams were pushing their chips to the center of the table. And I think this Von Miller signing is another indication of that. You need that other piece opposite Leonard Floyd. They've had a couple of guys there that look like they might be promising, but they haven't been able to take that next step. So now you've got edges inside, and then you've got Jalen Ramsey playing that star position where he's all over the field from the linebacker level to the deep safety spot. So, I think that it shows again that the Rams are aggressively pursuing another opportunity at the Super Bowl.
They are. What will the domino effect be? Because I look at, the other top teams in the NFC. Do they see what the Rams just did? And maybe they weren't planning to do much on the trade deadline, whether it be Dallas or Tampa Bay, some of the teams you expect to be there. Or do you see, the Cowboys or the Bucks making a move just to try to compete? If the Rams are all in, do we got to push our chips to the center of the table too?
Well, I think that the other teams would be confident in being able to block the edges. I mean, you look at Tampa Bay, they've got Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul there. So if you've played Tampa Bay, you've gone up against that. Leonard Floyd and Von Miller is going to be similar. The other teams on the top, Green Bay, Rodgers gets the ball out so fast, they may look at that and say, that doesn't scare us. That doesn't concern us. I don't think you react because somebody else has made a move. I think the big thing is you've been building confidence with your guys. If you feel there's somebody out there that you need to add, there's a position that you need to upgrade before the trade deadline tomorrow because that's the best thing for you, then that's one thing. But if you watch one of the opponents that's out there that's at the top of the NFC and they've made a move and now you feel you have to do something to keep pace, then you're coming at it from the wrong perspective, in my opinion. You should feel good. You should have already made that move coming in. If there was something that was there, you should have heard rumbling. You should have heard people talking about potential draft moves. And that's why I think, I don't want to say desperation by the Rams, but I mean, just this commitment that, hey, we are taking a shot at this. Stafford's playing lights out. We've got good pieces in place, but on the backside of this, what is going to happen to this Rams organization? I mean,
Well,
they
they don't have
do
any
not have
draft
a
picks.
first-round pick for a long time. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if this doesn't work out, if all the chips are to the center of the table and then you bust, this is going to be a long, long rebuild for the Rams.
It's certainly interesting. And before I let you go, Daryl, you had the Texans game this week. I've never met David Coley in person. I don't know him, but I like David Coley. How is he handling what's going on in Houston, just on a personal level? You get a chance to visit with him as the broadcaster.
Yeah, the same thing as you just said, Jason. I'd never really met David Culley before. I was so impressed with him. His demeanor is fantastic. I think he is definitely the right guy for that opportunity in Houston. The thing that I really enjoyed about him is he knows how important the culture and the chemistry of the organization is. And so last week during the Mark Ingram trade, there was a lot of discussion about what David Culley had said to Mark Ingram. He brought him with him from Baltimore because he wanted to be a run-first offense and he needed veteran leadership. And he thought that Mark Ingram was the perfect guy to have there. And he has done that. I mean, he has been one of those guys. And when you're a new coach coming in, you've got to have some of those players that have been with you in the past so the teammates can ask him about, hey, what's Coach Culley really like? And you're going to get, you get the straight talk from the guy that's been around. When they traded Mark Ingram, I agreed with some of the Houston writers. Well, nobody's safe right now. I mean, if that guy who was so important in the mind of David Culley is now on the trading block, then there's absolutely nobody safe. And how do you play well in an environment where you don't feel like you could be there the next day? And when we had an opportunity to visit with him, and he took us through that whole story, at the end of it, you feel completely different, because what actually happened is the Saints called and they turned him down at first. And then the Saints called again. And because Mark Ingram had started his career for 8 years with the New Orleans Saints and had a connection there, that was the only team that they were going to do this. So they bring Mark Ingram into the room, invite him into the conversation and say, hey, here's what's going on right now. What do you want to do? We're struggling here. You've been great for us. I know you'll be exactly who I wanted you to be moving forward with this organization. But you got a chance to go back to New Orleans and make a playoff run. And we'd love to have your input on what you want to do. And he said he'd enjoy the opportunity to go back to New Orleans and take a shot. So they do trade. And they don't get a whole lot for him. They get a 7th-round pick in 2024. That's not real helpful for a guy that you've brought in to kind of set the example and be the guy and be a veteran leader, help build that culture. So that's one of the things that I was really impressed by. And he adamantly said, he's like, Daryl, you got to understand, I don't care what the voices on the outside say. I only worry about what the voices on the inside say. Those are the people that are important to me. And when Brandon Cooks kind of spouted off on Twitter after the trade, once Brandon Cooks found out exactly how everything unfolded, he was completely on board and completely blown away by a coaching staff that would handle it that way. So he's putting the right key pieces in place. It's just going to take time. I mean, for the Houston Texans, it's going to be like turning an oil tanker for them. It's going to be a long, slow trip because they're just really, really far behind the 8 ball. The previous organization and administration really, really did a number on them.
Yeah, I certainly did. Daryl, always appreciate the time, my friend. We'll visit with you again next week.
You got it. Take care, Jason.
Appreciate it. Mondays with the Moose, Daryl Johnston. Incredible story there about David Coley and the way they've got to turn that battleship around. And, Bill O'Brien, enjoy Alabama, man. It's tough.